What has fishing come to? I'm sure you've heard that plenty of times before. I know I have. And it's usually from people stuck in their ways, unwilling to shift, and everyone else is wrong. But there's some truth in it. Fishing's gone mad. World's gone mad. The world has gone bait boats, mind. Can't stand the fix. Now I've heard what is fishing coming to and what is the world coming to, and that's one I really think, really? It's just fishing. There's a lot more going on in the world to have to brandish that saying out. But anyway, I've heard it more than most, probably, whether it's the line of work I've done or the fact that I put myself out there lots more than most people. I'm opening myself up to criticism, so what I do may not suit everyone else. But there's one thing I can take for certain, is that this is nothing new. I mean, when the bite alarms came out for starters, I wasn't around at the time, but I'm sure it was snubbed by the purists. And then moving on from that, obviously the hot topic one is going to be bait boats. That's not fishing. Who's to say it's not fishing? It's up to the person to decide. And even things like heated blankets and memory foam mattresses, because heaven forbid we have a good night's sleep on the bank, if we're not catching, of course. Don't click away just yet, because this video isn't going to be a really long rant about what's fishing come to, but I'm going to take that statement, de-generalise it, and make it about my fishing. What's my fishing come to? How can I strip back things that I'm not needing? How can I include things that I do need? What can I do in my fishing that makes me enjoy my fishing more? And you should do exactly the same. Don't listen to what everyone else has to say. Do what you do at fishing that makes you enjoy it, because just because you're using a bait boat and someone else snubs it, does that mean you can't enjoy your fishing using it? No. Their opinion is just as irrelevant as your opinion towards them would be, within reason. But that's the whole premise of this video. What better way to assess all this than having a nice, relaxed, laid-back session on my syndicate? Well, it's been 5 months since I was last on the banks of my syndicate. I was on here last year and I think I did 4 sessions, 3, 4, I don't think it's any more than 4. So barely any, and I managed 1 fish on my very first session, one of the little stockies from the other end of the lake. After that, it's just the odd session after a couple of months, then another session after a couple of months. And the last one was October 2024. So it's been 5 months since I was last here. And I might as well start from scratch, because you can't get in tune with the place if you're fishing it that sporadically. So as with any session, I got here yesterday morning, and the first thing I always do when I get here is do a lap of the lake. It's not the biggest of lakes, but it still takes a bit of time. There's a lot of places the fish could be, because the shape of this lake, as you can see from the drone, is long and thin, and from one side of the lake when you got the islands, it's almost canal-like to yourself. So there's a lot of places that these fish can meander through, go through channels and hold up. So a lap round is always what I first do. And of course I spoke to some of the anglers that were already on here. I think there was, I want to say 5 anglers yesterday morning, all on one bank actually. All basically saying the same thing. It's been difficult, not really much coming out, maybe the odd fish here and there. And one of the anglers who's currently opposite as well, when I got into a swim, said he just heard a fish roll on this side of the lake, which was good news for me, because I quite like this side of the lake. It's away from the car park, it's a bit quieter, a bit more me, a bit more secluded, which is exactly what the Syndicate Diaries is about. Just taking myself fishing, relaxing, chilling out. And what's my fishing come to? Well, every now and then I need the slower pace sessions from the Syndicate Diaries. Anyway, I digress. He'd heard a fish around here, and that's where I'd already had sort of earmarks where I'd like to be. Had a walk round, and thankfully a fish or two started showing themselves whilst I was around here doing the recce. That doesn't always happen. Like, you always try and do this watercraft thing where you spot the fish before you set up. For once, it actually paid off, because behind me a fish rolled once, twice, and third time. I think I got the rings on camera because I didn't quite catch it rolling, but I was like, sweet, I've actually nailed on. I'm going to be around this side of the lake. Now, one of the things is worth noting on here is that there is a sort of like an unwritten rule of common courtesy that if there's someone fishing opposite, you don't fish directly opposite them. That makes sense, because they're long old lakes, there are lots of swims, and there's not loads of members, it's not often that busy. So if you were to rock up directly opposite someone, it's kind of a bit of a idiot move. It's not the nicest. So I didn't fish to start with in the swim we're currently in. I'll get onto that in a second, because there was someone opposite. So I went 2 swims down, and first thing I did, I must admit, was I chucked out a zig with my newfound confidence in zigs after catching a few from Shearwater. I stuck out a zig. I had one ready tied up. It's one of the 3-foot zigs I've been using on the adjustable setups. And as I know this lake, I don't know, it fluctuates a bit, but on average I'd say it's probably around the 6 to 8 foot mark, something like that. And I had one ready, so I pinged out a 3-foot zig quite close to the island in the swim next door. And excuse me, got a bit of a cold coming on today, as always when I seem to de-stress on these sessions. And put that one out as a potential. Something could happen. So I put that one out and then set my other rods up. Now, when I talk about what's fishing come to, I'm going to keep referring back to the title. It is all making sense. Is we can all get sucked into the latest rig, the new end tackle. And yes, some of it is great. Some of it I have implemented into my fishing over the last few years. But what I have found is that I've now got a clear bottom presentation pretty much nailed on. It's the 5.5-inch Ronnie Boom from Gemini to a flexible braided D-loop that I tie on, hook bait and everything. That's pretty much nailed on. If I'm fishing on the clear bottom using my semi-running lead clip setup, which is my preferred lead setup, that's my go-to for clear bottom. On here, I know it can be quite weedy in patches, silty, it's not all clear. So I wanted to fish on something that could reset and maybe sit over some of those things on the bottom. So the rigs I've chose for this session is a semi-stiff braided section, which is then stripped just before the hook with a little shrink tube kicker, a little bit of shrink tube on the shank so I hold the hair in place. Same hook base as what I use on my clear bottom presentation. Little shot on the hook, that's another thing that I've added in. I know a lot of people just like, oh, this has been around for years. It may have been. I hadn't used it before really until the last few years, and my hook to land ratio has shot up, I'm not going to lie. So that's my rig for softer ground. And then other than that, I'll probably stick to a solid bag. I can't really see many occasions where I'd opt for a choddy unless I really have to. So the first thing this year I'm going to do is stick to those rigs, not look at other things that are coming out unless I really think it's going to improve my fishing. Stick to what I know works. My clear presentation works, my sort of silty, weedy bottom presentation works, the lead presentation works, solid bags I love, I know they work. So I'm going to stick to those setups and keep that going forward and not get sucked into lots of other rig changes, I hope, going forwards. Don't hold me to that in case something new comes up, and that is an amazing thing to go with. So the zig was out, it's time to put the left and middle rod out, and I put these out with the bait and spoon with the rig I've just discussed. Little mesh bag of stick and bag mix just to cover the hook point in case it landed on anything I didn't really want it to. Helps it flutter down a bit slower as well and land on top of things rather than embed in. And I dropped those with the baiting pole with barely any, baiting pole, what's fishing come to? With barely any bait in there. Because it's early March, yes, they might be starting to wake up and they might be starting to look for food, but I didn't want to go too heavy on the bait straight away in case they weren't there. And also, I hadn't set the bivvy up or anything. If I was to move, I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket, think, oh, I've put loads of bait in here, I'm going to stay, because that can be something we fall foul of. You invest in a swim and think, I can't leave now, I've put all of this in there. So kept it fairly low key, and then use the catapult, just a few handfuls of boilies to spread around the area, keeping it nice and spread, keep fish moving around, so it's not really obvious sort of localized ball of bait. Now the rods are out, and the whole time I was doing this, a fish rolled a couple swims to the left, rolled again. I was like, this is so frustrating because I don't want to fish opposite someone, that's the rule, but you can't ignore it. The fish were there, they were close but not close enough. So message the bailiff, or the owner, sorry, it's like, this rule, how strict is it? I also talked to the anglers opposite, and this swim was absolutely fine. I didn't realise at the time you can't actually see the anglers opposite. There's a few swims on here where you are directly opposite, and I think that's what the rule applies to. So I didn't need much more persuasion other than a couple of people saying, yeah, good to go, move. So I did. I picked up all my stuff, wound all the rods in, moved up just 2 swims, so not very far, and got the rods back out. Did exactly the same process. So the right-hand rod at the time with a 3-foot zig, ping that out just as hopefully if there's something around whilst I got the rigs ready. Change the hook baits over, fresh hook baits, put bags on again, and again put out with the bait and spoon onto some likely looking spots. And this was what was really handy because they've been showing. Obviously you always want a fish to show before you put the rod out, and that happened. One rolled just off the island, right in tight in all the reeds. So this bait and pole went out. It was actually knocking some of the reeds as I dropped it, so I know that rig went amongst all the reeds. And then the left-hand rod went to the left between, there's like a ball of reeds in the middle of the lake where the grebes are nesting, and then there's a gap until you get to the island. So I put it in there. It's like a natural little corridor that the carp could be going through, and it's not far away from where I've seen some fish rolling as well. So 2 rigs pretty much in the spot, and the same bait and application again. Catapult, just spraying boilies over the top of it. So methods and rigs I know work, and things I'm going to stick to throughout the year. Keeping on this theme, trying to bring it all back to the theme of this video, what's fishing come to. This is what my fishing has come to. Tried and tested tactics, which I know work, and I'm confident in. So rods are all out, sat here waiting. I was actually set the baby up and everything, and I had some work to get on with, so laptop on the lap, and I heard a fish roll a couple of times to the left. I thought, that's probably not a million miles away, and as I was editing, that's when the left rod burst into life. That's a bite. Not a monster, but worth the move and the effort. Yes. Barbless, pop straight out. Brilliant, set him rest, get the rod back out. Well, there I was, editing away, and I'd actually had a fish roll a few times on this spot, or maybe just beyond it, and I thought, this is looking good for a bite, actually. Now, I'm fishing pretty much locked up, because where I'm fishing, there's a lot of reeds in the middle of the lake. I didn't want any risk of that fish getting around it, so there's a few beeps looked up, and that rod was bending around, banging. Obviously, it's not budging anywhere, so the fish was already kind of being played for me, because I'm fishing so tight, and it's off at a slight angle. And yeah, this one is the result. No monster, but first of the year. It's early March, and this has already doubled my tally of carp from this stake, and I'm into my second year. I got the rod straight back out, let it rest in the net for 10 minutes or so, got the rod straight back out, and then I'm pretty sure I got done on it because it smacked around again as I was sorting things out, and nothing since. But then my middle rod decided to go away, and that was even smaller than this one. It's probably around the £5-6 mark. So with the one net, I just quickly let that one back and filmed this one for you. But 2 fish in the space of 10 minutes and potentially another one lost. It was definitely worth the move. The fish are here, and hopefully we can get a few more going into the evening. Right result. Very, very happy. Show you the other side as well. This fish is freezing. Got some beautiful scales on it. And there's the other side. It's quite a dumpy shaped fish. It's got quite a belly on it, so I'm sure it will grow on in years to come. But some beautiful scales on it, some slight purple colorations in places. Still kind of got its winter colours, but they've been pretty active in this swim. They definitely seem to be waking up, moving around, maybe looking for a bit of grub. Very happy. Cheers, buddy. Now, something you've probably seen me using quite a lot recently, and I'll continue to use going into the future, is the Go Catch app. It's a great place to not only book sessions, but also save things like this. I've saved session notes that when I next go to my syndicate, I'll remember exactly what happened on this trip, where I caught the fish from. I can add as many notes or as little notes as I want on that. And also, when you've caught something, you can take photos of your fish, add it to the app, and it uses AI to detect what the fish is, all the weather conditions, loads of the information that you don't then have to write down in a notepad and save it. All you've got to do is input your notes on the weight, and there you have it. All your catch reports also logged. So that flurry of action, of course, I was nice and quick to get the rods back out. That second bite actually came after I put the left rod back out. It had only been out a couple of minutes, and the middle one went. I think I got done on the left rod because it smacked round. So in a little window, I capitalised on it by being quick with the bait application, putting the rods back out, being quiet with the bait and spoon. But also, I think one thing that made sure that I landed those fish as well is because this is a barbless venue. So I want to do everything I can to make sure that those hooks stay in. Now, the shot on the hook, say what you want about it, but since using that, my hook to land ratio has been insane. The best it's ever been. There must be something here that I'm getting better hook holds. And both fish were hooked exactly the same in the scissors. And not just nicked, they were slammed right in the corner. So that was a great hook hold to start with. And I also use pretty much locked up clutches. I'm not wanting them to get any line, especially as I'm fishing around all these reeds. If they get into some of those, I'm going to struggle to get them out, especially with barbless hooks. So I'm fishing locked up. And so as soon as I get the bite, they're already under tension from the line. If the rod's bending, it's almost like they're already in play. So all of that is happening before we've even got to the rod. That fish is already under a lot of pressure, making sure that hook hold stays in. So by the time I get there and start playing it, it's already done all the work for me and making sure that hook is in and is staying in. So that was a great start to the move into the swim. Only a couple of hours in the swim, 2 bites in quick succession. I can't really ask for much more. That's already 2 more fish to my tally after only 1 all of last year. To have 2 in the space of 10 minutes, absolutely mega. So of course that zig, which had done nothing and I didn't really expect to do anything, came in. I put another exactly the same bottom bait rig in and put it a bit further down to the right where I put my left rod in the previous swim. There's a bit of bait, put it down there, and that's pretty much where I left things. And then last night I just enjoyed the sunset. These reeds just glow when the sun starts to set. It's absolutely beautiful. So I've been watching all the birds. Got the grebes that have nested and actually been mating this morning, which is another sign that spring's on the way. The marsh harrier I've seen, kingfisher, so many birds. And of course, also last night we had the starlings go over. Now, unfortunately, they didn't do all their murmurations here, which I was hoping for. They were probably about a mile that way. I could see it on the drone. When I took the drone up, they were over there, and it's exactly where I'd saw them just a couple of weeks ago. So rather than making out that it happened over the lake, here's some clips I got when I went and watched them specifically just a couple of weeks ago, and it's just amazing. Nature is best. unfortunately that led into a quiet night. Other than the odd beep here and there, which kept me awake, or the rat trying to get out the bivvy with my food bag, it was very, very quiet on the fish front. Until this morning, the starlings flew back over. I've seen the marsh harrier, I've been listening to the bitter, and the grebes have been doing their mating dance, followed by what follows after the mating dance. So spring is definitely here, and it's really nice to be out warm for a change. Sat out here in just a jumper and not having to be coats and hats and everything. But no more fish. I have seen some fizzing over the left rod. I've got a couple of hours left until the rods need to come in, but I hope you've enjoyed this video, because it's the Syndicate Diaries is a lot more slower pace. We tend to have a topic that we talk about. I want you to get involved in the comment section below, what your opinions are on this subject of fishing's gone mad. And I've tried to link back into that and how my fishing, how I've kept things pretty simplistic in how I approach things. Everything I use in my fishing makes sense. I'm not doing it for the sake of it. And I think that's how you need to be in your fishing. Are you doing something because you've seen someone else do it and you think that's what you've got to do? Or are you doing it because it makes sense in your fishing? You can see the benefits it's doing. You can actually work it out in your head and think, yes, this makes sense. Because if it's not, and you're not sure if it's doing anything, maybe go back to what you do know works and build from there. Because otherwise there's going to be so many variables and so many questions in your head of thinking, is that making a difference? Because I've put this on and I've changed it, or if you're changing loads of things all the time. Keep it simple, go step by step, and make sure that everything you do is methodical. That's the only thing I can give. But as I said at the start of the video, my opinion is just as valid as someone else's opinion. And sometimes those opinions aren't valid at all. So take what you want for this video. It's completely up to you. But that is pretty much Syndicate Diaries Part 1 of 2025 coming to a close. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Like the video if you did, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And if you're new to the channel, go back and look at loads of my other videos, because there's a video every single week of which I've been doing since the start of the year. So stacks of content to watch. Not all slow paced like this, some a bit more get up and go. But I hope you enjoyed this one anyway, and I'll see you in the next one.